Hello everyone and welcome to episode 47 of the Layton Fitness podcast. Now in today's episode we're going to be discussing the importance of tracking your progress, and without trying to hype this up too much, this really is one of the most important ingredients for you to be successful in either fat loss or muscle gain or strength gain. And it seems very simple, yet so many people do not do this, and the main overarching principle I'm going to talk about in this podcast episode is without doing this, you cannot then make the changes necessary for you to continue to see results. So for example, as I've discussed throughout the rest of my podcast episodes, some of my video content and some of my blog articles, one of the key principles you need to understand with fat loss and muscle growth is it's always a case of putting something in place, measuring your progress, and then making changes subject to progress. So for example, with fat loss plateaus are all part of the process. Once this happens, it's then a case of manipulating calories or increasing cardio, etc., etc. Yet without tracking your progress properly, you have no understanding of whether you're actually making progress or how much progress you're making. And obviously that's key, because understanding that will then dictate the change you'll then implement for you to continue to make fat loss progress. Now there's various forms of tracking progress, and even though I'm touching more on the progression side of things, which is the following things like body weight, body fat percentage, photos, measurements, these tangible things that need to be measured for you to gauge whether you're actually making progress or not, and then you can make changes subject to those. However, there's a couple of other important points I wanted to discuss as well. So therefore, really start implementing this immediately. Make sure you're at least measuring your body weight, you're taking photos, you're using a body fat percentage tool if you've got this available to you, using measurements. And the quantity of measuring tools is important, because the more measuring tools you start using, the more objective view of your progress you will have. Whereas if you just rely on one measuring tool, for example, the body weight is a good example. If you put all of your eggs in just measuring this one progression, you can have some inconsistencies, especially if you're a female. So for example, females will hold water throughout their menstrual cycle, which can obviously mask the progress on the scale. Additionally, even with males, you want to rely on multiple measuring tools. You don't just want to focus just on the body weight. Even though it's a good measuring tool, having body fat percentage, photos and measurements. So when I discuss measurements, I'm talking about stomach measurements, leg measurements, arm measurements, chest, back measurements, all of these girth measurements, which can give you a good indication of your progress. So as discussed, without knowing this information, at least weekly, you can't see when you reach a plateau in progress, and then you can't actually make the objective decision what type of change you're going to put in place so you can continue to make progress. The other point I wanted to address on is actually tracking your food intake. So as I've discussed on all of my other podcast episodes, this really is one of the key principles to changing your body composition, this tracking of your food intake. Now it depends how serious you are with this, because if you were to work with me personally online, we would definitely be tracking everything as accurately as possible. However, if you're just a general gym goer, just having a basic understanding of what you're actually consuming is certainly better than not having a clue what you're consuming. Now with that being said, it's important to know it's very easy to misreport your intake, especially if your calories are slowly starting to be reduced. It's very easy for you to slightly overconsume something on the measuring scale, and therefore that can actually negate the energy deficit required for fat loss. So as such, start trying to use MyFitnessPal, and I say that with the caveat you actually have some properly set up protein, carbohydrate, fat and calorie targets. The problem with MyFitnessPal is that protein is set way too low. It's not really set for trained individuals. As such, if you go to my website, James Layton, Layton Fitness.co.uk, there's a tab at the top of the page called free ebook, and I have a free book called How to Set Up a Nutrition Plan, and this teaches you how to set these daily targets. You can then plug that into MyFitnessPal and start tracking your progress. So basically now we've got two key tracking principles in place. We're tracking our body weight, body fat percentage, photos, measurements, or some of these depending on what's available to you, and we're tracking your food intake. The final thing we want to take ownership of and start measuring is gym performance, more specifically your strength in the gym, so reps and sets, and you want to see that improve over time. Now, as I've discussed on some of my previous podcasts, the rate of improvement will be subject to your training age. So obviously if you're an absolute beginner, you're going to see progress more than likely every single session for at least the first 6 months of training. However, moving into the intermediate phase, so 6 months to 2 years of training, progress is going to be a little bit slower, probably every other week. As you turn into an advanced trainer after 2 years of weight training, you're going to start seeing progress at a much slower rate. Every 4 weeks as a bare minimum should really be your target for improvement. It's more about looking at progress over a larger period of time. So as such, make sure you're taking a notepad to the gym, or you're tracking your progress via your mobile phone, and you essentially want to see that strength slowly increase over time. You want to see that volume increase over time, which will happen by default if you're getting stronger within the rep ranges you're following. So volume is basically sets times reps times load, and volume is one of the key determining factors for hypertrophy muscle growth. So that's certainly something you want to see improving over time, but like I say, it will be happening by default if you're getting stronger within the rep ranges you're following. Finally, really make sure you're trying to stay with the same routine over an extended period of time. You'd be surprised how many people I see just changing their session every single week, and how do you know whether you're making progress or not? You really don't. Remember, the body's just adapting to a progressive stimulus. The whole muscle confusion malarkey is just a myth. The body adapts to a progressive stimulus. If you're changing your workouts every single week, there's no way you can actually create this progressive stimulus. So as such, focus on the same routine for an extended period of time, or at least until you stop seeing notable improvements, and make sure those lifts, especially those big compound lifts, so squats, deadlifts, bench press, overhead press, those big compound movements are slowly improving over time. If you do all of the above, and obviously there'll be some nuances whether you're focusing on fat loss or muscle growth, but this general overriding principle of tracking your progress and then making changes subject to progress, that is one of the key principles to success, and it's how I work with all of my online clients, personal training clients, and it's also the same principle all the other good online coaches follow as well, this principle of tracking progress and then making changes subject to progress. So thank you very much. Hopefully you found this useful. Hopefully this has been an eye-opener, and I know this seems like a lot of hard work, but even just start tracking one more variable than you're doing now is going to help you on your road to your body composition goals. So I look forward to speaking to you next week. If you're still yet to download my free ebook, How to Set Up a Nutrition Plan, if you go to James Layton, Layton fitness.co.uk, you can download. It's called free ebook at the top of the website. Download that immediately, and that will teach you how to set protein, carbohydrates, fats, calories, and how to make changes for your goals. Additionally, make sure to listen back to all the other podcast episodes. Look on my website, as I've got even more videos on there, as well as other blog articles, and you can also learn more about myself, the services, and other products I have available.